The hull breach alarm screamed through the Meridian Explorer as Jake Morrison fought with failing controls, his knuckles white against the navigation console. Stars wheeled past the cracked viewport in a dizzying spiral as the ship tumbled toward the emerald planet below. "Come on, you piece of junk," he muttered through gritted teeth. But the engines were dead, the emergency thrusters sputtering their last gasps. 3 years of deep space exploration, mapping uncharted systems for Earth Command, and it would all end here on some backwater world that wasn't even supposed to have breathable atmosphere. The impact came, like the fist of God. Jake's harness cut deep into his chest as the ship carved a burning furrow through an alien forest, metal screaming against stone and root. When the world finally stopped spinning, darkness claimed him. Pain dragged him back to consciousness. His left leg was pinned beneath twisted metal, blood seeping through his torn flight suit. The acrid smell of coolant and burning circuits filled his nostrils. Through a gaping hole in the hull, twin suns cast long shadows through trees that seemed to shimmer with their own inner light. Jake fumbled for his med kit, hands shaking as he tried to inject a stim pack. The needle slipped from his blood-slicked fingers, clattering across the tilted deck. His vision grayed at the edges. This was how it would end. Alone, forgotten, on a world Earth Command surveys had listed as uninhabitable and devoid of intelligent life. They'd been wrong about the first part. The air was sweet and thick with oxygen. But as alien howls echoed through the forest, predatory calls that made his spine crawl, Jake wondered if they'd been right about the second. That's when he saw her. She emerged from the tree line like something from a fever dream, moving with fluid grace between the luminescent ferns, tall and lean with pale green skin that seemed to catch and hold the dying light of the twin suns. Her hair flowed like liquid fire, deep red waves that cascaded past her shoulders. But it was her eyes that made Jake's breath catch. Large and luminous, they shifted color like opals, holding depth that spoke of ancient wisdom and endless sorrow. She approached the wreckage slowly, cautiously, her movements predatory, yet graceful. In her hand she carried what looked like a weapon, a curved blade that gleamed with its own inner light. Jake tried to move, to reach for his sidearm, but agony lanced through his crushed leg. The alien woman paused at the hull breach, those impossible eyes meeting his. For a heartbeat that stretched into eternity, they simply stared at each other. Jake expected fear, his or hers, but instead felt something else entirely. Recognition, perhaps, as if they'd been waiting their whole lives for this moment. She tilted her head, studying him with curious intensity. When she spoke, her voice was like music, melodic and strange, words in a language that sounded like wind through crystal chimes. Then, as if making a decision that would change everything, she sheathed her blade and stepped into the wreckage. "Please," Jake whispered, not sure if he was begging for mercy or for her to stay. I won't hurt you." She knelt beside him, and Jake caught a scent like jasmine and ozone. Her skin held an inner luminescence, faint patterns of light tracing along her arms like living tattoos. When she reached toward his face, he didn't flinch. Her touch was cool, electric, sending shivers through his broken body. "Human," she said, the word heavily accented but unmistakably an Earth standard. Her eyes searched his face with something that might have been wonder. "You are far from home." Jake managed a weak smile. "Story of my life." She smiled back, just a curve of lips that transformed her alien features into something achingly beautiful. Rising gracefully, she extended her hand toward him, those opal eyes holding promises he couldn't begin to understand. "Come with me, human," she said, her voice carrying an authority that brooked no argument. "Death stalks these woods, and the night brings worse things still. But you, I will not let perish." Jake stared at her outstretched hand, knowing that taking it would change everything. Behind her, alien night was falling, and those predatory howls were growing closer. His ship was ruined, his leg possibly shattered, and rescue, if it came at all, was months away. But in her alien eyes, He saw something Earth had never offered him. Purpose, wonder, maybe even hope. Jake reached up and took her hand. Verinix's sanctuary defied everything Jake thought he knew about alien civilizations. Hidden within a grove of towering crystal trees, her dwelling seemed grown rather than built. Walls of living wood that pulsed with soft bioluminescence, curved surfaces that flowed like water frozen in time. As she helped him through the entrance, Jake marveled at how the very air seemed to sing with energy. "Your people built this?" he asked, wincing as she eased him onto a platform that molded itself to his body like memory foam. "We did not build," she corrected, her accent making the words musical. "We partnered. The Kethmori trees, they choose who may dwell within their embrace." Her fingers danced over a crystalline panel, and the walls brightened, revealing the full scope of her sanctuary. Jake's breath caught. The interior was vast, far larger than seemed possible from the outside. Gardens of alien flora cascaded down terraced levels, their blooms casting rainbow patterns across pools of luminous water. But it was the technology that made his engineers mind real. Seamless integration of organic and mechanical systems that Earth's brightest scientists could barely dream of. "How long have your people been here?" he whispered. Verinix's expression grew distant. "We are Zephyrian. We have walked between the stars since before your world learned to dream of them. But here we have hidden for 3 of your centuries." She moved to a cabinet that flowed open at her touch, retrieving implements that looked like a cross between medical instruments and living creatures. "The Great Purge drove us from our homeworlds. Earth Command believed us extinct." Her opal eyes met his, and Jake saw ancient pain there. "Perhaps it is better that way. Earth Command?" Jake's blood chilled. "You know about Earth?" "We know many things," she said softly, kneeling beside him. "Including why you are here, Jake Morrison of the Deep Exploration Fleet." Hearing his name from her lips sent an unexpected thrill through him. "How do you—" "Your ship's computers were quite informative before they died." She smiled, but there was sadness in it. "We have been watching Earth's expansion for decades. Your people have a talent for conquest." Jake wanted to protest, to defend humanity, but the words died in his throat. He'd seen the classified reports, knew what happened to civilizations that possessed resources Earth desired. Instead, he watched as she activated her medical instruments, their soft humming filling the air with vibrations that seemed to penetrate his bones. "This will heal you," she said, positioning a device that looked like a crystalline spider over his injured leg. "But the process, and it will bind us together temporarily. You will feel what I feel, know what I know. Are you willing?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications Jake didn't fully understand. But as those impossible eyes searched his face, he found himself nodding. The device touched his skin, and the world exploded into sensation. Jake gasped as pain flowed out of him like water, replaced by something that felt like liquid starlight. But more than that, he felt Verinix, her presence in his mind like a warm embrace, her memories flickering at the edges of his consciousness. He saw flashes of her life, the Zephyrian homeworld wreathed in golden light, the terror of the Great Purge, the years of hiding and loneliness. And he felt her emotions as she worked to heal him, professional focus tinged with something deeper. Curiosity, attraction, a longing she'd thought buried beneath duty and survival. "Your species is intense," she murmured, her voice slightly breathless. Through their connection, Jake realized she was experiencing his memories too. Earth's blue skies, the feel of rain, the ache of loneliness that had driven him to the stars. "Verinix," he whispered, reaching up to touch her face. Her skin was silk over steel, and she leaned into his touch with a soft sigh. "This is forbidden," she said, but made no move to pull away. "My people have laws, ancient laws about contact with other species." "What kind of laws?" Her hand covered his where it rested against her cheek. death for both parties. The Council believes contamination leads to weakness, to the mistakes that nearly destroyed us before. Jake felt his heart sink, but also a fierce protectiveness rise within him. Then why save me? She was quiet for a long moment, her opal eyes studying his face as if memorizing every detail. Because when I looked at you, broken and bleeding in your metal tomb, I saw something I thought lost forever. What? Hope. She smiled, and it was like sunrise. For 300 years I have lived in shadow. We all have. Hiding, surviving, but never truly living. But you make me remember what it feels like to want something more than mere existence. The healing device powered down with a soft chime, and Jake realized the constant ache in his leg was gone. He sat up carefully, marveling at the perfect knitting of bone and tissue. Incredible. The Kethmori trees provide all we need, Verinix said, beginning to pack away her instruments. Shelter, healing, sustenance, but they cannot provide companionship. Cannot fill the empty spaces in one's heart? Jake stood testing his newly healed leg. It felt stronger than before, as if the alien healing had improved upon the original design. How many of you are there? Here? Perhaps 50. Scattered across the galaxy? She shrugged. Who can say? We lost contact with other survivors long ago. That's why you're alone. She nodded, moving to tend her gardens with practiced motions. Jake followed, watching as she harvested fruits that glowed like captured moonlight. The others have mates, families, but I am Kethvan, what you might call a healer guardian. My role is to protect, to preserve. Romance is discouraged. Sounds lonely. It was. She paused, a luminous fruit cradled in her palms. Until today. Their eyes met across the garden, and Jake felt that electric connection again, deeper now, strengthened by the healing bond they'd shared. He moved closer, drawn by forces he couldn't name or resist. Verinix, he said softly. I don't understand what's happening between us, but I know I don't want it to stop. She set down the fruit, her hands trembling slightly. Jake Morrison, you are going to destroy me. Or save you, he replied, reaching for her hands. Like you saved me. When their fingers intertwined, the bioluminescent patterns on her skin flared brighter, pulsing in rhythm with both their heartbeats. Jake marveled at the sight, at the way her alien beauty took his breath away. The Council will sense the bond, soon, she whispered. They will come. Then we'll face them together. She laughed, but there was fear in it. You do not understand. They will not simply exile us. The old laws demand death for contamination of the bloodline. Jake squeezed her, hands gently. Then we'll have to make sure they don't find out. And how do we do that? He smiled, pulling her closer until he could smell that intoxicating scent of jasmine and ozone. I'm an explorer, remember? I'm very good at keeping secrets. As if in response to his words, the sanctuary's walls pulsed with warning light. And Verinix's expression went rigid with fear. Too late, she breathed. They already know. The warning lights faded as quickly as they'd appeared, leaving Jake and Verinix in the sanctuary's gentle glow. She released his hands and moved to the crystalline panel, her fingers dancing across its surface with urgent precision. A patrol, she murmured, relief evident in her voice. They passed the outer perimeter but sensed nothing unusual. The Kethmori trees shield us still. Jake watched the tension leave her shoulders, admiring the graceful curve of her neck as she worked. The healing bond had left him hyper-aware of her presence, as if every molecule in his body was attuned to hers. How long do we have? Perhaps days. Perhaps hours. She turned to face him, and he saw resignation warring with desire in her opal eyes. The mental link we forged during your healing. It grows stronger each moment we're together. Soon it will be impossible to hide. Then, let's not waste what time we have. She stared at him for a long moment, and Jake could practically see the internal battle she was fighting. Duty against desire. Survival against the desperate need for connection. Finally, something in her expression shifted, and she moved toward him with predatory grace. "You would risk everything for someone you barely know?" she asked, stopping, mere inches away. "Wouldn't you?" He reached up to trace the luminescent patterns on her arm, marveling at how they flared brighter under his touch. "You already have." She shivered at his caress, her skin warming beneath his fingers. "The neural bond, it makes me feel things I've never experienced. Is this what your species calls love, or simply biochemical attraction amplified by alien contact?" Jake's hand moved to cup her face, thumb brushing across the sharp angle of her cheekbone. "Does it matter? What I feel for you is real, whatever we call it." "Show me," she whispered, leaning into his touch. "Show me what it means to live instead of merely survive." When their lips met, it was electric, literally. Bioluminescent patterns raced across Verinix's skin like lightning, and Jake felt a shock of pure sensation that had nothing to do with static. Her mouth was warm, her kiss hungry, yet tentative, as if she were discovering something entirely new. Jake pulled her closer, his hands tangling in her fire-red hair as she pressed against him. Through their bond, he felt her wonder, her fear, her desperate longing for connection. It amplified his own desire until he could barely think straight. "Your quarters," he managed against her lips. "We should—" "Yes," she breathed, taking his hand and leading him through an archway that dilated at their approach. Her private chamber was intimate and organic, with walls that curved like the inside of a shell. Bioluminescent vines cascaded from the ceiling, casting everything in shifting patterns of blue and gold. At the room's center stood a platform covered in what looked like liquid silk, her bed, Jake realized. Verinix turned to face him, and, in the soft light, she looked like a goddess from some ancient myth. The patterns on her skin pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, hypnotic and beautiful. "I have never been with another species," she admitted. "I don't know if our anatomy is compatible." Jake smiled, moving to stand before her. "We'll figure it out together." His hands found the fastenings of her garment, a flowing robe that seemed woven from starlight itself. It fell away like water, revealing pale green skin marked with swirling bioluminescent tattoos. She was lean and strong, alien yet achingly feminine, and Jake's breath caught at her beauty. "Your skin," he murmured, tracing the glowing patterns across her collarbone. "It's incredible." "Neural pathways," she explained, her voice slightly breathless. "They allow us to share thoughts, emotions, even sensations with those we bond with." Her hands worked at his clothing with increasing urgency. "I want to feel what you feel, Jake Morrison. I want to know what it's like to be truly alive." When skin met skin, the sensation was overwhelming. The luminescent patterns on Verinix's body flared like stars being born, and Jake felt every sensation doubled, his own desire and hers, creating a feedback loop of pure need. They fell onto the silk-covered platform together, hands exploring alien contours and familiar curves. Jake kissed her throat, tasting starlight and electricity, while her hands mapped the muscles of his back with desperate curiosity. Every touch sent cascades of light across her skin, turning her into a living constellation. Through their bond, he felt her amazement at the differences between them, her wonder at sensations she'd never imagined. "You're so warm," she gasped as his lips found the sensitive spot where her neck met her shoulder. "Your species burns with such intensity." "Only when properly motivated," he murmured against her skin, drawing a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. They moved together with increasing urgency, discovering that their anatomy was indeed compatible in the most fundamental ways. As their bodies joined, Verinix cried out in a language that sounded like music, her entire form erupting in patterns of light so bright they turned the chamber into a kaleidoscope. Jake felt her pleasure as his own, amplified through their neural connection until he could barely tell where he ended and she began. They moved in perfect synchrony, two beings becoming something greater than the sum of their parts. When release finally claimed them, it was with an intensity that left them both shaking, patterns of light slowly fading from Verinix's skin, like the afterglow of fireworks. They lay entwined afterward, hearts racing, the neural bond settling into something deeper and more permanent. Jake traced lazy patterns on her arm, marveling at how the bioluminescence responded to his touch. "What happens now?" he asked softly. Verinix was quiet for a long moment, her head pillowed on his chest. "Now we are bonded," she said finally, "not just physically but spiritually. The neural pathways have synchronized. We are, what is the human term? Married, I suppose, in the eyes of the universe, if not our peoples." Jake felt a surge of possessive protectiveness. "I won't let them take you from me, and I will not let them harm you." She lifted her head to meet his eyes. "But Jake, you must understand, this bond cannot be hidden much longer. The Council will sense it, and when they do, we'll face whatever comes." He kissed her forehead gently. Together. A new alarm sounded, different from before. Deeper, more urgent. Verinix shot upright, her skin flashing with distress patterns. "What is it?" "Not the patrols," she whispered, fear evident in her voice. "The Council themselves, they're coming." Through the sanctuary's walls, Jake could hear voices speaking in the musical Zephyrian language, growing closer by the moment. Verinix leaped from the bed, pulling on her robes with practiced efficiency. "There's no time to hide what we've done," she said, her patterns flickering between fear and determination. "The bonding light. They'll have seen it from orbit." Jake dressed quickly, his mind racing. "What are our options? Face judgment or flee?" She turned to him, her opal eyes bright with unshed tears. "Either way, our old lives are over." The voices were at the sanctuary's entrance now, speaking in tones of authority and anger. Jake took Verinix's hand, feeling the bond between them, pulse with shared resolve. "Then let's make sure our new life is worth fighting for." The entrance dilated, and 3 figures entered, tall, imposing Zephyrians whose skin patterns indicated high rank and advanced age. Their opal eyes fixed on Jake with expressions of disgust and outrage. The eldest spoke, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Verinix of the Healing Caste, you stand accused of contamination and species betrayal. The penalty is death. Will you face judgment or will you compound your crimes with cowardice?" Verinix straightened, her hand tight in Jake's. "I will face judgment, honored ones, but I will not face it alone." The eldest's gaze shifted to Jake, and his expression grew even colder. "The alien speaks for himself. His fate was sealed the moment he drew breath on our sacred world." Jake stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. "Then let's get this over with." The Zephyrian Council chamber was a natural amphitheater, carved into the heart of a massive crystal formation. Bioluminescent fungi provided the only light, casting everything in an ethereal blue-green glow that made the assembled elders look like ancient spirits. Jake counted at least 30 of them, their skin patterns dim with age and disapproval, as they watched him and Verinix being led to the center of the space. Elder Thexnai, the one who had confronted them at the sanctuary, stood before a throne-like formation of living crystal. His voice echoed through the chamber as he spoke in formal Zephyrian, but Jake's neural bond with Verinix allowed him to understand every word. "We gather in judgment of crimes against the survival code. Verinix of the Healing Caste stands accused of species contamination. The alien," his gaze fixed on Jake with contempt, "stands accused of existing where he should not." An elderly female elder rose from her position. "The evidence is clear. The bonding light was visible from our highest sensors. She has linked her life essence to this creature." "I am not a creature," Jake said loudly, his voice carrying across the chamber. "I'm a human being and I've done nothing but survive." Murmurs of outrage rippled through the assembly. Thexnai's patterns flared with anger. "It speaks in our sacred tongue. The contamination spreads even as we deliberate." "The bond allows linguistic transfer," Verinix said, stepping protectively in front of Jake. "He means no disrespect." "Silence," Thexnai's voice boomed. You have forfeited the right to speak in your defense by your actions. The ancient laws are clear. Any Zephyrian who bonds with an alien species faces immediate execution, along with their partner. Jake felt Verinix's fear through their connection, but also her determination. "Honored elders," she said, ignoring the command for silence, "I invoke the right of proving." The chamber fell dead silent. Even Thex and I seemed taken aback. "You cannot," another elder whispered. "The right of proving has not been invoked in 3 centuries. Because it has not been needed," Verinix replied. "But the old laws state that any Zephyrian accused of capital crimes may demand trial by ordeal to prove their worth to the tribe." Thexnai's expression grew cunning. "And if they fail? Then they die as the law demands. But if they succeed—" She straightened, her patterns flaring with defiant light. "Then their actions are judged justified by the ancestors themselves." Jake grabbed her arm. "Verinix, what are you doing?" "Saving us," she whispered back. "The right of proving demands 3 trials. If we pass them all, the council must acknowledge our bond as legitimate. And if we fail?" Her grip on his hand tightened. "We die together, instead of apart." Thexnai conferred with the other elders in hushed tones before turning back to them. "The right of proving is acknowledged. You will face 3 trials chosen by this council. Survival of one without the other constitutes failure. Do you accept these terms?" "We do," Verinix said before Jake could protest. "Then let the first trial begin." Thexnai gestured, and a section of the chamber floor dilated, revealing a dark pit below. "The depths of memory. You must navigate the ancient tunnels beneath our settlement and retrieve the heart of Kethmori from its resting place. But beware. The tunnels are home to the Void Hunters, creatures that feed on the life force of the living." Jake peered into the darkness below, seeing nothing but black stone and the occasional glimmer of something that might have been eyes. "How do we even see down there?" "You don't." Thex and I smiled coldly. "You trust in each other. The bond you claim is so precious must be strong enough to guide you through the dark." They were lowered into the pit on a platform of living crystal, descending into a maze of tunnels that stretched in all directions. The moment they touched bottom, the platform withdrew, leaving them in absolute darkness. "Jake?" Verinix whispered, her hand finding his in the black. "The bond, can you feel it?" He concentrated, focusing on their connection. Gradually, he became aware of her presence like a warm beacon in his mind. More than that, he could sense her emotional state, her memories of these tunnels from childhood stories. "This way," he said, pulling her toward a tunnel that felt somehow less menacing than the others. They moved through the labyrinth in near silence, guided by intuition and their growing psychic connection. Jake found he could sense Verinix's thoughts more clearly in the dark, her memories of ancient Zephyrian lore helping them navigate the twisting passages. "The heart of Kethmori," she explained as they walked, "is a crystalline formation that resonates with life force. It's what allows the trees to bond with our people. If we can retrieve it—" A howl echoed through the tunnels, long, mournful, and hungry. "Void Hunter," Verinix breathed. "They're drawn to strong emotions. Our bond is like a beacon to them." Jake felt, rather than saw, the creature as it emerged from a side passage, a writhing mass of shadow and hunger that seemed to absorb what little light existed in the tunnels. He pushed Verinix behind him instinctively. "Can we fight it? Not with weapons, but together." She pressed against his back, her hands on his shoulders. "Channel the bond, Jake. Let it flow through you." Jake focused on their connection, feeling it strengthen and brighten. Verinix's patterns began to glow through her robes, and suddenly the tunnel was filled with soft light. The Void Hunter recoiled with a shriek, its form dispersing like smoke. "The bond creates light," Verinix explained as they hurried deeper into the tunnels. "Life energy made manifest. The hunters can't stand it." They faced 2 more Void Hunters before reaching the heart of the labyrinth, a vast cavern where a crystal formation the size of a building pulsed with inner light. The heart of Kethmori hung suspended in its center, a gem that seemed to contain entire galaxies within its faceted surface. "It's beautiful," Jake breathed, "and heavily guarded." Verinix pointed to the shadows moving around the crystal formation's base. "At least 6 hunters, maybe more." Jake studied the cavern, his engineer's mind working. "We need to get close enough to touch the heart, right?" "Yes, but then we don't fight them. We outshine them." He turned to her, his eyes bright with determination. "Can you amplify our bond? Make it brighter than it's ever been? The intensity might kill us, or it might save us." He took her hands, feeling their connection pulse with shared resolve. "Trust me." They walked into the cavern hand in hand, their combined life force blazing like a star. The Void Hunters converged on them from all sides, but the light of their bond was too intense. The creatures dissolved before they could reach them, their hungry wails echoing off the crystal walls. Jake and Verinix reached the heart together, their hands touching its surface simultaneously. The moment they made contact, the entire cavern erupted in brilliant light, and Jake felt the consciousness of the Kethmori trees themselves, ancient, wise, and approving. When they emerged from the pit, carrying the heart between them, Thexnai looked impressed. "The first trial is complete," he announced, "but 2 remain. The test of fire awaits." As guards led them toward their next ordeal, Jake squeezed Verinix's hand. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." "Together," she agreed, but through their bond he could feel her growing fear. The trials were getting more dangerous, and they both knew the Council was hoping to see them fail. The test of fire proved to be a gauntlet through chambers filled with plasma storms and gravitational anomalies, environmental hazards that would test not just their bond but their physical limits. They survived by moving as one, Jake's human reflexes complementing Verinix's alien grace, their connection allowing them to anticipate each other's movements perfectly. When they collapsed at the finish line, burned and exhausted but alive, Thexnai's expression had shifted from contempt to grudging respect. 2 trials complete, he said. 1 remains, the trial of truth. This time they were led to a simple chamber containing only 2 chairs and a crystalline device that hummed with ominous energy. "The memory crown," Verinix whispered, recognizing the device. "It will show our deepest truths to the Council. Every secret, every hidden thought. What are they looking for? Proof that our bond is false, that you're using me or I'm using you. If they find any deception, any ulterior motive." Jake sat in one of the chairs, pulling her down beside him. "Then they'll find nothing but the truth. That I love you and you love me. And sometimes that's enough to change the world." As the memory crown activated, bathing them in piercing light, Jake felt every moment of their relationship being examined, dissected, analyzed. Their first meeting, the healing bond, their physical connection, their growing love, all of it laid bare before the Council's scrutiny. When the light faded, Thexnai stood in stunned silence. Around the chamber, the other elders whispered among themselves, their patterns flickering with confusion and something that might have been awe. "The bond is true," one of them said finally. "Deeper than any we have recorded. It appears the human and Zephyrian nervous systems are more compatible than our ancestors believed possible." Thexnai's jaw worked silently for several moments. "The trials have been completed successfully," he said at last. "The right of proving has been satisfied, but—" An alarm cut through his words, different from any they'd heard before. "Emergency." Lights flashed throughout the chamber as a communications device materialized from the wall. The image that appeared made Jake's blood run cold. Earth Command warships, dozens of them emerging from hyperspace above the planet. "Impossible," Thexnai breathed. "This world is uncharted, hidden." Jake's face went pale as he recognized the lead ship. The Devastator, Admiral Chen's flagship. He looked up at the assembled elders, seeing his own doom reflected in their eyes. "They followed my ship's emergency beacon. I led them right to you." Through their bond he felt Verinix's fear and betrayal, followed immediately by fierce protectiveness. She stood, her patterns blazing with defiant light. "Then we fight," she said simply. All of us. Together. But as more ships appeared on the screen, Jake realized they might have won the trials only to face an enemy that would destroy everything they'd fought to protect. Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the communication array, cold and authoritative. This is Admiral Patricia, Chen of Earth Command Fleet Operations. We have tracked a stolen exploration vessel to this sector. Surrender the fugitive Jake Morrison and prepare for planetary annexation under Colonial Protocol 7. Jake's stomach dropped. Stolen vessel? I never... The emergency beacon in your ship, Verinix said, understanding dawning in her opal eyes. It wasn't just for rescue, it was a tracking device. Thexnai's expression had shifted from disapproval to something far more dangerous. You led them here, human. Your people come to finish what they started 3 centuries ago. No, Jake said firmly, stepping forward despite the angry murmurs from the assembled elders. I didn't know, but I can fix this. How? Elder Sixara demanded. Your warships carry enough firepower to crack a moon. We are scientists and healers, not warriors. Jake looked at the fleet displayed on the screen. 12 heavy cruisers, 30 frigates and support vessels, enough force to subjugate a small empire. His mind raced through tactical possibilities and dismissed them all. They couldn't fight, but maybe they didn't have to. Give me access to the communications array, he said. Absolutely not, Thexnai replied. You've done enough damage. Jake, Verinix said quietly, her hand touching his arm. Through their bond, he felt her reading his intentions. You're planning something dangerous, something necessary. He turned to address the full council. Admiral Chen is here because Earth Command believes this world contains strategic resources. But what if it doesn't? What if the energy readings that brought me here were fabricated, understanding? Flickered in several faces. Elder Sixara leaned forward. The Kethmori trees could mask our true biosignatures, make the planet appear barren. More than that, Jake said, his plan crystallizing. What if Jake Morrison died in the crash? What if there's nothing here but empty worlds and broken ships? Verinix's grip on his arm tightened. You're talking about erasing yourself, your whole identity. I'm talking about choosing who I want to be. He faced her fully, ignoring the council for a moment. Jake Morrison was an Earth Command explorer who died alone on an uncharted world. But I could be someone else, someone who belongs here. The neural restructuring required would be extensive. Elder Sixara mused. Dangerous. You would lose much of your human identity. But keep what matters, Verinix added, hope sparking in her voice. Your memories of us, your feelings, the core of who you are. Thexnai looked skeptical. And what of the fleet above? They will not simply depart without proof. Jake smiled grimly. They'll get proof. But first, I need to talk to Chen. The communication channel opened, revealing Admiral Chen's stern features on the main display. Her gray hair was pulled back severely, and her eyes held the cold calculation of someone who had made a career of conquest. Jake Morrison, she said without preamble, you've led us quite a chase. Stand down and prepare for extraction. Chen, Jake replied, making his voice sound weak and desperate. Thank God you found me. My ship, it's completely destroyed. I've been surviving on emergency rations for weeks. Our sensors indicate significant energy readings from your location. What's the source? The crash damaged my reactor. It's been leaking exotic particles into the atmosphere. The whole area is irradiated. Jake coughed convincingly. I don't think I have much time left. Chen's expression didn't change, but Jake caught a flicker of something in her eyes. Disappointment? She'd hoped for a pristine world to exploit, not a contaminated wasteland. Stand by for extraction, she said curtly. The channel closed and Jake turned to the council. Now we need to make it look convincing. Can the Kethmori trees simulate radiation? Better, Elder Sixara said with something approaching a smile. They can create a quantum cascade that will make every sensor on those ships scream warnings about dimensional instability. As the Zephyrians began their preparations, Verinix pulled Jake aside. You realize what you're asking? To change your very neural structure, man, you won't be fully human anymore. Will I be fully me? In every way that matters. She touched his face gently. But you'll be bonded to this world, to our people, to me. There will be no going back. Jake covered her, hand with his. There's no going back anyway. Chen won't just leave me here. She'll dig until she finds your people, and then... He shook his head. This is the only way. 20 minutes later, the quantum cascade began. The Kethmori trees throughout the settlement pulsed with coordinated energy, creating a resonance field that made reality itself seem unstable. On the ships above, Jake knew every alarm would be screaming warnings about dimensional rifts and exotic radiation. His communicator crackled with Chen's voice. Morrison, we're reading massive instabilities in your area. What's happening down there? The reactor, Jake gasped, having to actually fight against the disorienting effects of the quantum field. It's going critical. The whole region is becoming unstable. You need to get back, Admiral. This entire system could collapse. There was a long pause, then. Understood. Dropping emergency supplies at the edge of the contamination zone. We'll monitor from a safe distance and await your status reports. Jake closed his eyes in relief. Copy that, Admiral. Morrison out. The quantum cascade continued for another hour, long enough for Chen's fleet to retreat to the edge of the system. When it finally subsided, Jake found himself face to face with Elder Sixara, who held a device that looked like crystalline spider merged with liquid light. The neural restructuring matrix, she explained. It will alter your brain chemistry to match our physiology while preserving your core memories and personality. But understand, once this is done, Earth's medical scanners will read you as fully Zephyrian. Jake Morrison will be truly dead. And what will I be? Jektai Mori-san, Verinix said softly. A name that honors your human origins while marking you as one of us. If you're willing. Jake looked around the chamber at the assembled elders, seeing cautious acceptance where once there had been hostility. At Verinix, whose love blazed through their bond like a star, at the choice between a life of hiding and running, or a future built on truth and connection. I'm willing. The transformation took 3 days. Jake drifted in and out of consciousness as alien nanotechnology rewrote his neural pathways, his DNA, the very essence of what made him human. Verinix never left his side, their bond serving as an anchor to keep his sense of self intact through the metamorphosis. When he finally awoke, Jake, now Jektai, felt fundamentally changed, yet essentially himself. His skin held a faint green tint, and bioluminescent patterns traced along his arms like living tattoos. His eyes had shifted to match Verinix's opal coloring, and he could feel the network of neural pathways that connected him not just to her, but to the Kethmori trees themselves. How do you feel? She asked, her fingers intertwined with his. Different, but right. He sat up, marveling at the enhanced sensory input from his altered nervous system. I can feel the trees, the other Zephyrians. It's like being part of something infinite. You are, Thexnai said from the chamber's entrance. The elder's expression had shifted to something approaching respect. The transformation was more successful than we anticipated. You are no longer human, Jektai Mori-san. You are Zephyrian, bonded to our world and our people. Over the following weeks, Jektai learned to navigate his new existence. The enhanced neural pathways allowed him to communicate telepathically with other Zephyrians, to interface directly with their biotechnology, and to feel the pulse of life energy that flowed through the Kethmori trees. Most importantly, his bond with Verinix deepened into something that transcended physical attraction or emotional connection. They had become two parts of a single consciousness, able to share thoughts, feelings, and experiences as easily as breathing. Admiral Chen's fleet maintained a distant watch for 3 months before finally declaring the system a total loss and departing for Earth. The official report listed explorer Jake Morrison as killed in action, his ship destroyed by exotic radiation from an unstable planetary core. The world itself was marked as uninhabitable and dangerous, ensuring no future Earth expeditions would venture there. They're gone, Verinix announced, returning from the sensor station with news of the fleet's departure. The last ship just entered hyperspace. Jektai nodded, feeling a complex mix of relief and finality. His old life was truly over, but his new one stretched ahead, filled with infinite possibility. "What now?" he asked. "Now we live," Thexani said, entering their shared dwelling with several other elders. "For the first time in 3 centuries, we can truly live instead of merely surviving. Your sacrifice has given us that gift, Jektai Mori-san." "Our sacrifice," Verinix corrected, taking Jektai's hand. "We chose this together." Elder Sixara stepped forward, carrying an ornate crystal formation. "The Council of Elders has voted. You are to be bonded formally, in the old tradition. Your children will be the first of a new generation of Zephyrians, one that carries the best of both our species." The bonding ceremony took place under the light of the triple moons, with the entire settlement gathered to witness the union. As crystalline devices projected their shared memories into the night sky, their first meeting, their trials, their choice to sacrifice everything for love, Jektai felt the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders. "Do you regret it?" Verinix asked later, as they lay together in their dwelling, her bioluminescent patterns casting gentle light across the living walls. "Everything you gave up?" Jektai considered the question seriously. He thought of Earth, of the stars he'd never explore, of the human relationships he'd never rebuild. Then he looked at his wife, for that's what she was now in every sense that mattered, and felt the warm presence of their unborn children in her mind, already beginning to form. In the place where their neural patterns intersected, "I didn't give up anything," he said finally. "I chose to become something more." Outside their window, the Kethmori trees hummed with contentment, their ancient consciousness embracing the newest member of their symbiotic family. In the distance, other couples walked hand in hand through groves of luminescent flowers, some Zephyrian, some the offspring of previous interspecies unions that had occurred in secret over the centuries. "The children will be beautiful," Verinix murmured, her hand resting on her still flat stomach where their first child was already beginning to develop, a process accelerated by their deep neural bond. "They'll be free," Jektai replied, pulling her closer. "Free to be exactly what they choose to be." As they drifted off to sleep, connected at every level of existence, the stars wheeled overhead in patterns that no longer seemed alien, but familiar. Home. For the first time in his life, Jake Morrison, now Jektai Mori-san, had found exactly where he belonged. Years later, when their children played in the crystal groves and new settlements spread across the continent, when other lost human explorers found their way to sanctuary among the Zephyrians, Jektai would remember that moment of choice in the crashed ship, when a dying man reached up to take an alien hand, and in doing so, chose love over fear, connection over isolation, and hope over despair. "Sometimes the galaxy doesn't send you home," he would tell his children. "Sometimes it gives you something better, the chance to build a new one with the person you choose to love." And in the end, that was enough.